Hello and welcome to another What If episode. Today's What If scenario has been highly requested by a lot of people, and I thought I'd give it a try. So this is what might have happened if the Skywing egg survived. Kestrel stalked through the ravine, looking for signs of Hivitor, signs of the Skywing egg. Everyone else had made it back. Even Asha had managed to keep her egg safe at least, even if, somewhere back in the caves, Kestrel thought maybe she was dying. Kestrel had seen a lot of dragons die. It happened. She wished it hadn't happened to Asha. She hoped Hivitor was okay. Kestrel knew before she found him that he wouldn't be. Even through the rain, she could smell the scent of fire and burned scales, smell the coppery tang that told her Hivitor wouldn't be helping them raise the prophecy dragonets. Kestrel found him at the bottom of the ravine, half in the weed-choked river that wound through the stone. He was definitely dead. Smoke poured furiously off Kestrel as he fumed, stalking around him. 2 of them had died at just finding the eggs. How could these dragonets possibly be worth it? Reminded suddenly of his dying mission, Kestrel cast around, looking for the surely shattered shards of red-orange egg. She didn't see anything. Had the soldiers just taken the egg back? Kestrel would have expected Scarlet to simply destroy it. Kestrel certainly knew she wasn't above it. She was about to leave again when she heard it. A tiny, shrill squeak. Kestrel froze. No way. Kestrel turned slowly, ears pricked as she strained to hear. Sure enough, the faint scrabbling noise, the wet slap of soaked wings. Kestrel edged back over to Hivitor's body and slowly lifted one of his wings. There, amidst the soft, wet river weeds and the remnants of a red eggshell, a tiny, soaked dragonet was squirming. Kestrel almost choked on the hot smoke that billowed in her throat. How dare this tiny little prophecy brat survive instead of Hivitor? It squawked again. Pathetic little thing. But Kestrel knew they needed it. Knew Hivitor had died to get it. So she needed to take it back anyways. Kestrel scooped the mewling thing up and turned back to the cave. Finch had been brought back to the cave by Kestrel that night, just in time to catch the end of the other dragonet's hatchings. Or so he was told. He couldn't technically remember much beyond a sense of a sudden shattering of his world, followed by the wet slosh of water or how hard it had been to move. He didn't know if it had been because of the weeds in the river or because the fall had broken his back legs. Finch hadn't been hatch-crippled, he didn't think, but he'd definitely spent his whole life that way. His hind legs were twisted, messes of uneven scales and thick pink scar tissue. They were small and sore all the time, and incapable of bearing any weight at all. So Finch couldn't walk or move around at all until he finally learned how to fly. He thought the Guardians hated him for something that wasn't his fault at all. Kestrel wouldn't even look at him, refused to let him do any combat training, couldn't stand to be around him. She was the closest thing he had to a mother. She'd rescued him, saved his life. But something about him was so wrong that she hated him. The other dragonets said otherwise. They'd been the ones to help him figure out how to fly. It was impossible to take off normally without the use of his legs. Even once he was in the air, he had trouble balancing. Finch found it was easier if he jumped off something, but it was hard to climb most of the time. The others, mostly Clay and Tsunami, let Finch ride on their backs most of the time. He was small, not as small as Sunny, but not nearly so large as them. Nobody really talked about it, how strange it was that one of the prophecy dragonets was a cripple. The Guardians were convinced it was a sign that they were meant to fail. Sunny said that wasn't true. Mostly the Guardians tried to ignore Finch, like if they looked away enough times he'd magically fix himself. Everything changed when Morosir visited, when he snapped and snarled and insisted that Finch wasn't the prophesied Skywing. Morosir said they needed to get rid of him. Everything moved really fast after that, and nothing slowed down until the queen of the Skywings appeared in their little cave, smoke pouring off of her like a fire. Finch hated Scarlet, because she hurt his friends and killed Dune, but he hated her most because when she slithered over to him, unable to move or escape, she tisked and walked away like he was useless. Finch set her tail on fire, right where the bleeding injury was. When he woke up, he was in a metal cage, promised to burn in her tower of oddities. Finch wasn't alone. He and Sunny were both to be gifts to burn. He wished he was alone, but it was nice that he wasn't. It wasn't like he was the only dragonet in the world who couldn't walk, he thought. Scarlet was just acting like he was so weird to be as cruel as possible. Or maybe Burn was just really, really weird. But one night, when there was nobody around them, Finch and Sunny worked together to melt one of the bars, the two of them small enough to slip out the hole created. Somewhere, dragons were roaring happily. Probably a bad sign, Finch thought ruefully, because so far, his tribe seemed horrible. They were sneaking out of the building, jumping at every sound and shadow when someone caught them. Sunny squeaked in surprise before steeling herself and jumping at the rusty, old Skywing. His wings were shredded and his tail dragged limply behind him, Finch noted. "Stop! Stop!" he hissed, shoving Sunny away. His voice was ancient and creaky. "Hush, dragonets," he cautioned. "I'm going to help you escape." Sunny stilled, eyes narrowed. Finch shifted. Sunny had been helping him move, but now he was leaning against the wall and trying not to seem wobbly. "There is a passage you can take," he said. "I will show you." His name was Osprey. Osprey couldn't fly. He told Finch that didn't mean he couldn't do the right thing anyways. Finch bit his tongue and thought about that. Maybe, even though he couldn't walk, he could still do the right thing too. Osprey insisted the two of them leave. He said Starflight had been taken by Nightwings already, and that he would try to help Clay and Tsunami escape as well. Finch didn't want to abandon them, but he didn't want Sunny to go to Burn either, so he pretended to be a lot braver than he felt, and urged her to follow the tunnel Osprey showed them into. Sunny and Finch didn't know it, but that same night, Scarlet found out that Osprey had betrayed her and set her prisoners free. She had him executed, but not before he could tell Peril the truth about her mother and what Scarlet had done to her. Enraged, Peril swiped at Scarlet as she fled the throne room, one red-hot talon streaking down the side of Scarlet's face. Peril freed her mother and the two remaining prophecy dragonets before fleeing. Nobody knew where she went. Kestrel flew east, and Clay and Tsunami flew south. When the sun finally rose, the Sky Kingdom was in complete uproar. Search parties were flying all over the land, crisscrossing the mountains and looking for their escaped prisoners. Sunny and Finch kept hidden the entire day, before flying at night, heading for the desert. They lasted a day before a band of Skywing soldiers caught them, surprising them and easily recapturing them. Sunny and Finch were taken to Burn anyways. The two of them ended up in her strange tower. Burn didn't kill them, which Finch considered a plus, but she did leave them there at the top of the tower. Although, he wasn't alone, so that was nice. While they were prisoners there, they made friends with the Sandwing Prince's pet, a tiny scavenger who liked to creep about and sometimes hide with them. Meanwhile, Clay and Tsunami had found Starflight, but not their missing two. In a small town nestled at the base of the Claws of the Cloud Mountains, they heard rumors that Burn had found a strange golden dragon. With no other hints to even begin to follow, the three of them traveled to the desert. Burn's fortress seemed impenetrable, so they rerouted to a city Dune had told them about, a place called the Scorpion Den. There they met a dragonet named Keebly, who figured out that they were the Dragonets of Destiny. However, instead of turning them in or doing anything evil, he brought them to Thorne, who was actually pretty great and not evil, which was a relief after Scarlet. Thorne listened to their story and her eyes went sharp when they mentioned Sunny. She demanded more details about her appearance, how she'd been found, and who had raised them. When they mentioned Dune, Thorne surged to her feet, looking excited. "I will help you to rescue these dragonets," she promised, and although she refused to tell them why, the dragonets would just have to accept it. Keebly, Thorne, a dragon named Sixclaws, and a few others left for Burn's fortress soon after. While the rest of Thorne's dragons attacked one of Burn's supply chains to draw the princess's attention, their small group, including the remains of the prophecy dragons, snuck into Burn's fortress. They weren't having any luck finding their friends until a tiny scavenger ran up to them, shrieking and waving her arms. Instead of eating her, "No, Sixclaws, now is not the time to be snacking," they followed her, because she kept coming up and pointing at Clay and Tsunami and Starflight excitedly. The scavenger led them to a creepy tower, and they found Finch and Sunny at the top. The scavenger disappeared once they'd found their friends. Nobody noticed her leaving. But as they were sneaking out of the fortress, almost completely in the clear, the little animal reappeared, holding something gold and black and sand-dusty in her tiny paws, and shoving it at their group. And that's where we'll stop. Gosh, that ended up being a little bit longer than I expected. For those of you who didn't catch on, Flower brought them the Eye of Onyx, which will help them fulfill the prophecy. Meanwhile, Morrowseer has no idea what's going on, but when he finds out, yeah, he's gonna be furious. I really love the idea of their Skywing Dragonets surviving, but being injured in some way from that fall. I know it's nonsensical for him to survive at all, but hey, who cares? I think it would have been really neat to see that kind of representation in the series as well, not to mention how interesting it would be for us to see how that affects the rest of the Dragonettes. Anyways, what do y'all think? Did you enjoy this What If? It was a hard one to take on, I gotta admit, but I feel like it went well enough. If it seemed like I skimmed some bits, it was only because to go into full detail, I'd have had to make a long video, and nobody wants that. Be sure to like this video if you enjoyed it, and subscribe to see more content. Thanks for watching, and please have a wonderful day.